Have you ever heard the story about Benjamin Franklin flying a kite in a storm and discovering electricity? It sounds like a scene from a movie, doesn't it? But was it even true?
That's the thing about Franklin. His life is full of stories, some real, some not. He's known as one of the founding fathers of the United States, a great inventor, and a brilliant writer. But there's a lot more to his story than the success people talk about.
Absolutely. He wasn't just a man of big ideas. He also made some big mistakes. Behind his famous face on the $100 bill, there's a person full of surprises. Today, we'll explore how he went from being a poor boy in Boston to one of the most respected and controversial figures in history.
So get ready. We're diving into the life of Benjamin Franklin, the good, the bad, and the shocking.
Let's start at the very beginning. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17th, 1706, in Boston, Massachusetts. He was the 15th of 17 children in his family. Can you imagine living in a house with so many siblings?
It must have been so noisy and crowded. His father, Josiah, made candles and soap for a living. But they were not rich, and raising such a big family was really hard. Franklin had to leave school when he was just 10 years old to help his father at work.
And Franklin didn't like it at all. Making candles wasn't something he wanted to do with his life. When he was 12, his father sent him to work for his older brother, James. James had a printing business, and Franklin became an indentured servant.
For people who don't know, being an indentured servant meant working for someone without pay for many years. It wasn't easy. Franklin learned a lot about printing, but his brother was strict and treated him unfairly.
Franklin didn't just accept it, though. He was clever and curious. Even as a young boy, he loved to read and write. He wrote little stories and sold them on the streets. He wanted to earn money, but it wasn't enough to support himself.
That's right. And despite the tough times, Franklin's love for learning never faded. Even when life was hard, he kept reading, writing, and dreaming about a better future. It's amazing to think how far he came, starting from such a poor and difficult childhood.
Life didn't get much easier for young Benjamin, did it? Even when he tried to improve his life, he faced problem after problem.
True. One of his early struggles was with love. When he was 19, he fell for a woman named Deborah Reed. He wanted to marry her, but her father said no because Franklin was still an indentured servant.
That must have been heartbreaking for him. And things got worse. While Franklin kept working to make a name for himself, Deborah married another man, John Rogers. But that marriage didn't last either.
Right. Rogers lied about his life, ran away, and left Deborah in debt. Meanwhile, Franklin was facing his own personal troubles. He had a child out of wedlock and struggled to care for the baby while trying to get back on his feet.
It's clear Franklin's early years weren't smooth at all. But what's interesting is that he didn't let these setbacks stop him. He kept learning, writing, and planning for the future.
Exactly. Franklin had big dreams, and he wasn't going to let rejection or hard times hold him back. Even though he failed often, he always found a way to keep moving forward. That kind of determination is what makes his story so inspiring.
After all those struggles, Franklin decided to make a fresh start. He left Boston and moved to Philadelphia. It was a big city full of new opportunities, and Franklin saw it as the perfect place to build his future.
And he didn't waste any time. He found work at a printing shop and started meeting important people in the city. By 1728, he was ready to take a big step. He started his own newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette.
That was a smart move. Franklin made the newspaper popular with interesting stories and strong opinions. He also joined a group called the Junto Club. It was a club for people who liked to talk about ideas and work on projects to help the community.
One of their projects was creating a public library. Franklin often claimed he started the first library in America. But the truth is, it was a group effort, and he just played a part in it.
That's something Franklin did a lot. He took credit for ideas that weren't always his own. Another example is Poor Richard's Almanac, which he started publishing in 1733. It was full of advice, jokes, and helpful tips. People loved it.
They did. But Franklin got the idea for the almanac from another family, the Leeds family, who had their own almanac. To compete with them, Franklin spread rumors about them, even saying one of them was a devil worshiper.
That's not very honest, is it? But Franklin's printing business helped him become successful and respected. It gave him the money and freedom to work on even bigger ideas later in his life.
Exactly. Even with some questionable actions, Franklin's skills as a writer and printer laid the foundation for his future as one of America's most famous figures.
When people think about Benjamin Franklin, they often imagine him as a great inventor or scientist. You know the famous story about him flying a kite in a storm to discover electricity, right?
Of course, it's one of the most famous stories in American history. But here's the thing. It might not be true. Historians think Franklin didn't actually discover electricity with that experiment.
That's surprising. So, what did he do?
Well, Franklin did study electricity, and he ran experiments to learn more about it. But he didn't understand it perfectly. For example, he thought electricity was like a fluid, which isn't correct. Still, his curiosity made him famous, even if his ideas weren't always right.
He also invented some useful things, didn't he? Like the Franklin stove to heat homes better and bifocal glasses to help people see.
Yes, but there's a catch. Some researchers say he didn't fully invent these things on his own. He might have borrowed ideas or copied designs from others.
That makes me wonder, why didn't he file patents to protect his inventions?
Franklin said he didn't want to keep his ideas to himself. He believed inventions should be shared freely. But some people think he avoided patents because he knew the ideas weren't entirely his. Filing patents could have caused legal trouble.
Either way, Franklin's reputation as an inventor grew. Even if some of his stories are exaggerated, people admired his creativity and his love for trying new things.
Exactly. Franklin's inventions, whether fully his or not, added to his fame and helped shape his image as one of America's greatest minds.
For all his success, Franklin's life wasn't without its dark sides. Let's talk about some of the controversies that people don't usually hear about.
Sure. One of the most talked about parts of his life is his relationship with Deborah Reed. They lived together as a couple for many years, but they were never legally married.
Why didn't they marry?
Deborah's first husband left her but never gave her a proper divorce. So legally, she couldn't marry Franklin. They lived as a common law couple and raised 2 children together, along with Franklin's son William from another woman.
That sounds complicated. And Franklin wasn't exactly faithful, was he?
No, he wasn't. He had romantic relationships with other women, which caused a lot of gossip. Some people even accused him of being part of a secret group in England called the Hellfire Club.
What was that?
It was a group known for strange parties and rituals. Historians aren't sure if Franklin was deeply involved or just attended because of his powerful friends.
And then there's the story about the bones found in his London home. That's so strange.
In 1998, workers found human bones in the basement of Franklin's old house. The bones came from at least 15 people, including children. Some of the bones had cuts or holes, which made people think they were used for medical experiments.
Do we know if Franklin was involved?
It's hard to say. Some think the experiments were done by his friend William Hewson, who studied anatomy. But Franklin must have known about it, and grave robbing to get bodies for research was illegal at the time.
Despite all this, Franklin kept his good public image. It's amazing how he managed to stay respected, even with these secrets and scandals.
That's true. Franklin had a way of charming people and shifting the focus back to his successes. It's part of what makes him such a fascinating and complex figure.
As Benjamin Franklin grew older, he slowed down, but his curiosity and love for learning never faded. He spent his later years enjoying life, though his health began to suffer.
That's true. Franklin developed gout, a painful condition in his joints. He blamed his lifestyle, too much rich food and drink and not enough exercise. Even so, he continued writing and meeting with people until the very end.
He passed away on April 17, 1790, at the age of 84. His death was a major event. More than 20,000 people came to his funeral in Philadelphia. That shows how much people admired him.
Yes, Franklin's reputation only grew after his death. People started to see him as the perfect example of American success, a self-made man who rose from nothing through hard work and clever ideas.
But not all the stories about him were true, right?
That's right. Myths started to mix with the truth. For example, many people think he invented lots of things all by himself, but we know now that some of those ideas came from others.
And his autobiography played a big role in building his image. Franklin wrote about his life in a way that made him look like a hero.
It worked. His story inspired people for generations. Schools, towns, and libraries were named after him. Even today, his face is on the $100 bill, and he's remembered as one of America's greatest minds.
Franklin's life wasn't perfect, but his influence was huge. His story shows that even great people can have flaws, but their impact can still shape history.
Exactly. Benjamin Franklin will always be remembered as a man of both brilliance and contradictions, a true symbol of America's past.
So, that was the story of Benjamin Franklin, a man of big ideas, great achievements, and some surprising secrets. He wasn't perfect, but his influence on history is impossible to ignore.
Absolutely. Franklin's life shows us that even with mistakes and flaws, it's possible to leave a lasting mark on the world. His story is full of lessons about hard work, curiosity, and human nature.
What do you think about Benjamin Franklin? Let us know in the comments. And if there's someone else you'd like us to talk about, we'd love to hear your ideas.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.